Hello everyone, and welcome to Writers Drinking Coffee. This is a podcast based on writers sitting around, drinking coffee and or occasionally wine, and talking about anything and everything. We may use explicit language and will almost certainly drop F-bombs, but none of that is the point or drive of the content, so consider us PG-13. There will be rants and raves and occasional readings. There will be conflicting creative advice driven by at least 3 utterly disparate points of view. Your hosts today are John Schmidt, hello, and her, Jeannie Warner.
This is episode 18, where we're going to talk about things like voice work, Audible, and more. Oh my.
We have a special guest, and her name is...
Hi, I'm Tiana Hansen. I do audiobooks and voice work and various and sundry other loose geeky things.
And you do casts, too.
I do casts?
Yes, what is it called? Live streams.
Live streaming, yes.
Oh, I'm old. You must teach me about live streams.
Live streams are lovely, a whole lot of fun. I get around a table with 4 of my best friends and throw dice for 3 hours. It's great.
And you'll be able to give us a link so that we can tell the people who are listening where they can find this marvelous thing?
Sure thing. My channel is Quests and Chaos. So we are live Monday nights at 7 p.m., Tuesday nights at 7 p.m., Saturdays at 6, and usually Wednesdays at 7 for board games. And that is twitch.tv/questsandchaos. And all of the back episodes are on youtube.com/questschaos. No and in there.
We had a bit of discussion earlier on the topic of, because there's podcasts that are just live gaming groups,
right,
too. And I thought that was kind of cool, although it was a little bit, there was part of me that was old, not to put a fine point on it, of I've seen kids sit and watch other kids play Minecraft.
Yes.
And so sitting and watching gaming was like, oh, I like gaming. I really do like gaming. But watching somebody else game or listening to somebody else game, where does the readership come from? Tell us about it.
So a lot of the people paving to talk. Who'd have guessed? A lot of the people who watch us are people who either don't get any D&D in their lives because they can't schedule a gaming group, which is the
bane of any gamers.
The ongoing problem of getting, 5 people together around a table. For us, we treat it as a job.
Let's just say that I've been trying to get Tiana on our podcast here for a few weeks now. So
it's been difficult.
Scheduling is hard. John went away to Crown Tournament, came back. So
John went to the thing in the desert. John went to visit friends in Portland. But here we all are now.
Hooray.
And even if you don't have a Doctor Strange to look at 7,432,413 futures to find the one date to do the gaming, making it a job seems a very responsible thing, and more gaming will occur.
Mm-hmm. And I could see the advantage there of arranging time and saying, okay, maybe I don't have time to game, but I kind of want to game.
Yeah.
And I don't know, sometimes if you don't have enough people, we used to have a blank character and just throw cards in or move for them. So it's kind of like, I know, having Elijah at the table is you're gaming with someone online that's listening.
Yeah, he wins a lot of cards against humanity.
I have noticed that. That's sad when I can't beat random chance.
Yes. It's frustrating sometimes. And I mean, I've run across podcasts that are the DM and one other person, where it's like duo gaming. And I've had a session, not on Quest and Chaos, but in a home game that I was in, where it was me and the DM, because I was going to be in Idaho for the next episode, and so I wrote my character out and then wrote her back in.
That seems reasonable.
It was great.
Years ago, when we did have a regular night meeting that we could all get together, we'd play, but the DM kept dragging somebody off to get, oh, John, I have to give you this information that only you can know because only you... So the rest of us had to figure out what to do. So we would do things like open strange books and say you have to read, but you can't crack up. Or something, or other personal challenges to keeping a straight face and pass the time. So yeah, I could see that. What else do you have going on? You podcast for gaming. Mm-hmm. I really was excited about the idea of, I don't know if you heard our episode where Alice Cornwell came on and read a story.
No, I haven't.
She did a really good job for a completely raw reading, but you were more of a professional. And so if somebody wanted to get into the reading of stories, let's say they weren't feeling confident in their writing yet, John and I'll work on that, but they wanted to read it, or they've been told, oh, everybody says I should do Audible or do this.
Sure.
Where would you start? Where did you individually start?
So my journey with voice acting began right after I moved to the Bay Area. I'd been toying with the idea for a little while anyway, because my sister had given me a microphone for Christmas. I'd been eyeing the Audio-Technica AT2020, which one of my favorite YouTubers actually uses. And so I was like, oh, well, if it's good enough for MatPat, it's good enough for me. So I put that on my wish list and got it for Christmas. It was great.
Yay.
And then, yeah, right. And then very shortly thereafter, I came down to the Bay Area and went to 12th Night. And there I ran into a friend of mine who does freelance voice acting stuff. And she said, you have a brand new microphone. You want to get into this? Check out the website Fiverr and do voice work there. She says, I do that all the time.
So Fiverr, F-I-V-E-R?
2 R's, Fiverr.
Okay. So not quite the rabbit from Watership Down.
Not quite.
Okay, I was just checking, And we will, of course, as always, put all of our links onto the episode notes so you guys can see them.
Oh, for sure.
I read a couple other things that were very interesting prepping for this, Chad, like becoming a voice actor. Mm-hmm. And they had like a lot of series of steps, like these are things you should do or try or practice. What did you do and try and practice?
So I didn't really do much of anything that was specifically voice acting. I have my bachelor's degree in theater, so I've been on the theater track for a long time, and that was... fun fact, I used to have a tremendously bad stutter. And
I did too. Let this be a joyful lesson for all of you stutterers out there. You can overcome these things.
Yes. And for me, the trick was getting into theater, because a friend of mine pointed out when we were working on To Kill a Mockingbird that when I have lines, I don't stutter. And he had noticed, of course, how bad my stutter was before that. But he was like, maybe if you change the way that you think about speaking, that will help you speak with less of a stutter. And it really did help. So I think I now...
Oh my God, have you seen the movie The King's Speech?
Yes! Yes!
Not just because Colin Firth is so adorable, but...
I mean, Colin Firth, though.
Right, but I thought it was interesting that they played that first time that... It plays the record really loud and it irritates the prince. And so he's full of just, by God, I will be heard, and practically yelling. And it's clear. It's
very clear. And there are also, a lot of it is mental stuff. So, you trip over your tongue because of all of that. So for the actual storytelling and voice work, I started with theater. And then I also used to read out loud to my siblings because my sister has dyslexia. And there were a couple of books that I was like, you need to know these stories. It was Tamara Pierce books.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so I started reading them out loud to her for about an hour a night before we went to bed. And I got in the habit of just reading out loud and doing different character voices and having all the little moments. And I mean, she would ask me to do that well into our teenage years. So
that's really cool.
Right? And my sister and I didn't get on very well when we were kids. So that was our one point of connection, was these stories that I sat on the side of her bed and read.
I think that's at least an interesting way to get started. Did you ever... Well, John, for instance, also has what I call the radio voice that I'm jealous of. Did you
that
read
lovely deep voice?
You had little brothers around. Did you read to them, or?
Oh, no. Oh, God, no.
Do boys not read to other boys? Is that
boys
not a
don't
thing?
hold still long enough to read to other boys. I also started in theater, although I didn't have a stuttering issue, and did a lot of choir. And then I did some more choir, and then I did a little more theater. But
there is a certain quality that music training gives you to be able to project and to enunciate clearly, because if I'm going to sing words...
Yep.
Gilbert and Sullivan, baby.
Patter songs, yes.
Patter songs. The
you can do
precursors to rap.
The Nightmare song from Iolanthe alone ought to be, oh, right, you want to audition for this. Let's hear your Nightmare song.
I can't do the patter songs, but there are a couple vocal warm-ups that are they're not patter, but they're pretty quick that I do before we go on the live stream, and everyone just sort of looks at me like, You just did that in one
do
breath.
Do it.
What do you got? Lay them down.
What to do to die today at a minute or two till 2? A thing distinctly hard to say, but harder still to do. The drum will beat a tattoo at 20 till 2, a rat-a-tat-a-tat-a-tat-a-2, and the dragon will come when he hears the drum. At a minute or two till 2 today. At a minute or two till 2.
That's
Holy
cool.
Moses. You nailed it to the wall.
Thank you.
My grandfather used to do one of the tongue twister, the ostless thistle. The successful thistle sifter, in sifting one sift full of unsifted thistles, thrust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Now, the uncivilized thistle sifter, who's sifting unsifted thistles, see, I've already lost it. How many thistles would thy sift through the thick of thy thumb if the ostless thistle, the successful thistle sifter, in sifting one sift full of unsifted thistles, thrust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb?
Wow.
That helped a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah. Well, and the other one is the one that Stephen King used in It. He thrusts his fists against the posts and still insists he sees the ghosts.
He thrusts his fists against the post and still insists he sees the ghosts?
That.
Ghost or ghosts?
Ghosts.
Ghosts. Ah.
Well, there's vocalizing, too, in a similar sort of way that we used to do. Hominini, hominimini, ham, bodi, 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 ba. And that's just to get your mouth working from extremes. Bo is your lips are forward.
Red leather, yellow leather.
Yeah.
Enunciation, correction.
Well, and then there's also sounds that are very similar. So for that we did bada gutta bada gutta bada gutta but gutta bada gutta bada gutta bada gut bada gutta gutta bada bada gutta gutta
Hey, he could be president.
bada gutta gut. It seems likely.
But there's also, I was just suddenly had a realization, the Minions from, do you realize that's what they're doing? The bee-doo, bee-doo,
Oh my
bee-doo,
God, you're
bee-doo.
right.
Because the B is your mouth, corners of your mouth pulled back, and ooh is all forward.
Yeah.
They're vocalizing.
They are.
That
The
is a room
sweet
full
little
of people
horrible
who-
things.
Well, it's a room full of voice actors who are having too much fun. Moving on from how you got started in your vocalizing, how did you get into Twitch streaming?
So, about 2 years ago, year and a half, 2 years ago, I moved in with a bunch of other television or film students, mostly out in Hercules, and I always go through the casting notices on SF Casting, and I came across one that said, "We're starting a Twitch live stream. Do you play D&D, or are you willing to learn? Can you improv this, that, and the other?" And I was like, we've been playing this home game of D&D for the last 7 months. I had a great time playing my bard Ari, and I was like, I really want to do that. I want to do that thing. So I applied for it and didn't hear anything because I love Thomas to bits and itty bitty pieces, but he's not good at getting back to people.
There are many, many people in this world who are not quick at getting back to you.
It's frustrating, but it happened that one of my housemates knew him from a project they had done together, and so he saw that Thomas had posted on Facebook, "Hey, we're looking for actors for this thing," and I was like, "Hey, poke him. You can go and audition too if you want, but poke him and tell him that your housemate applied through SF Casting and is quite interested." I had an audition the next day.
Yeah.
And the audition was basically prepare a character and show up ready to drop it into a scene. And so I brought in the absolutely quintessential mom friend cleric. Kind of an older woman who came in and was like, "Do you understand that the state of that privy is absolutely going to drive your patrons away? You should probably do something about that." "Yes, I would like tea, please." No, none of that nasty ale. Tea, please." And I had a lot of fun playing off of them. Thomas and Amy are the producers of Quests and Chaos, and we played off of each other and talked for a while, and we got on really well, almost immediate chemistry, and I got a call back, and they said, "We're starting Chaos Agents on September 11th.
To a certain extent, there's a lot of creativity involved in that, too. And in a way, you're doing is oral storytelling, even if it doesn't get written down into a script or story.
I don't understand why you said to a certain extent. It's guided improvisation.
Guided
Exactly.
improvisation.
You're thrown
is-
into scene
yeah.
after scene and you make a set of choices. But then, as was discussed with Carol Wolfe, you have to have your character, your cut, and your stance, your tower and your well.
This is just another gold brick in my yellow road here that
That's
says that all paths, can lead to being a writer if somebody wants to be one.
It's true.
No.
Truly. Like how I
Yes.
loop it around over and over again, because
I've never heard you.
And this is also kind of a way back when my mom said, you're never going to get anywhere just playing games all the time. There's industries.
There are. And a lot of it started because of Critical Role and Matt Mercer and his crew, because, oh my goodness, they take improvisational storytelling to just like the next level. And we always strive to have like those real moments. And I have a lot of fun with that.
Have you ever been tempted to do like the film version, like The Gamer's Darkness Rising? Did you see that one?
I did not.
It's one where basically it's a guy who's designed it and they keep going out. So finally they bring in a girl to the party. And so she actually reads the book and she was supposed to be the fighter, but she doesn't. It's fun. I don't want to spoil it for you because I feel like you should see it. Yeah, but you and the whole group together, I'll put the...
Yeah. Shoot me the link. I'd love to.
Because it's very much we're all sitting around the table, and then flash to creeping through the woods in our costumes, and the guy who's hitting on everybody like you're a girl this time. You're playing a girl. Oh yeah, and then it's a female actress. Oh yes, I'm a girl.
Hitting on everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. I do refer to myself as the token girl in the Chaos Agents because I am the only girl at the table.
Oh, I don't know. I think I want to be fair for this. I think we have all moved past the days of thinking there's a token girl.
Oh no, it's absolutely a joke. We have a really diverse cast both on Chaos Agents and Natural One. Natural One is mostly female.
Yeah.
And in Call of Cthulhu was all female, and then we had to have a shift of actors because life and scheduling and stuff.
Cthulhu for done.
Yes,
sailing lessons.
I
love sailing lessons.
That sounds wonderful.
I wrote a sea shanty once for a band I had up in Seattle, and one thing was making sure that it was the life of a cultist is easy and free when your masters sleep in there under the sea. And the whole idea of tentacle cell, they sold back when it was first the beginning of a new genre, as it were. Mm-hmm. They talk about fantasy noir is the theme of the upcoming this next month's World Fantasy Convention down in L.A.
Interesting.
And I think it's interesting that they call it fantasy noir when really fantasy noir has been around since Lovecraft.
Yeah.
Well, since the beginning. What was the first science fiction /
Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mary Shelley.
Yes, indeed.
Although arguing about whether it's first or not, let's sidestep that entirely. But fairy tales. Let's have light, happy fairy tales with wolves eating people and women having their toes cut off. So pretty, pretty slippers.
Pretty slippers, and also don't go into the woods after dark.
Hey, be nice to little old ladies and little old men you find in the woods. I think that's, first of all, if you're in the Midwest somewhere, they probably have packing, so just be polite. And if you're going to be in the woods somewhere, I presume, a little bit of niceness and manners goes a long way. Oh my God, they could totally update Baba Yaga for Juno.
They could.
Right?
That would be perfect.
So she's a trapper and skinner, right?
I love it.
What is the hut standing on?
Oh, well, she just keeps a lot of chickens, and it looks like they're...
Are moose really the modern chicken of Alaska?
Moose have really long, springy legs. It makes sense.
They kill people by falling over on their cars.
Oh my God. I have legit hit a moose and was very grateful that it didn't come through my windshield because we clipped each other.
Mm.
You weren't driving a VW Bug or anything because you wouldn't be here now, I can tell.
No, I was driving. I was driving a Nissan though, a little Nissan Altima or something like that, little car.
Yeah.
So now we've revealed her secret Alaskan roots.
Now we also want you to write the Baba Yaga in Alaska story.
I kind of have to at this point,
right? Because let's face it, there's so much of the from the bridge over the Yakutsk Peninsula straight across.
No, I'll DM it, but it'll be very heavily T. Kingfisher influenced.
Well. Ooh. Because Ursula is made of awesome, but
and has a new book.
She does.
October 1st. Ursula Vernon, writing as T. Kingfisher, is publishing The Twisted Ones, which is said to be the Blair Witch Project meets, probably Scooby-Doo, knowing her, but the Blair Witch Project meets Mayberry RFD, basically.
Oh my!
No, it's very Ursula. She has recently been heard to say on Twitter that one of the rearers said it's cute, but it's not horror, and now she's afraid. And the trouble is, I can't read horror, so I hope it isn't horror, but it's going to be horror.
I just want somebody to go through and read a bunch of her stories, like we're having Catherine Carr, has some of her stuff on Audible, but I'm trying to hook up and saying, all right, all of you gals who've got some time, let's get Kit's stuff out there, because there's so much good literature out there, and there's so many people that find it hard to sit down and take time to read, but they read on, how long were you on Lawrence Avenue trying to get here, John?
Oh.
35 minutes is a serious chapter of a book.
Maker's breath. Yeah.
Right?
But, let us then in a future time talk about the other resources, because I would love to do that, and I'm actually rewriting 2 of her stories as in the script format that Scrivener gives you. Hello, Scrivener. Thank you, Ray Ray. So that I can collect the people. Unfortunately, I do not have the female voice required, because there is a female voice in all of her stories.
I'm pointing at the girl over here. So.
I can't imagine why you'd be pointing at me.
We're going to, just thinking.
I want her and Alice, and I need someone with a good Southern accent. But it comes the time, comes the woman.
I can only do Arkansas. I spent summers in Arkansas.
Well, there you go.
I can kind of do Tennessee because a good friend of mine is from Tennessee, and I've had to do it for an audiobook that I did. And so I would just call her and be like, hey, Brittany, talk to me for 10 minutes. Just talk.
Well, I'd never been down there before. So the first time I heard somebody say, we're fixing to go out, I'm like, you're fixing your gout. Is that pills? What's broken? How did you break your gout? Fixing. It took me a while to figure out fixing meant getting ready. And that gout. Gout was go out. And it was just regional dialects. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I sounded weird and talked way too quickly for them.
Probably. Because that's one of the things that I had to learn when I was doing the Southern accent was slow way down.
Oh, Adina has a point that if you want to speak from Florida, she lived in Florida for a while, everything has at least 2 syllables. Want a chair?
A chair. Okay.
A chair. Want a glass? It's inflection. It's very,
It's very musical in a way.
It is. It absolutely is. And I noticed out there that you have an Audible narration already called The Actress.
Yes, I do. Tell
me about that. How did you, was it just a friend said, hey, read my book? Or?
So my adventures on Audible have been very interesting. Like I said, I started on Fiverr, and I did an audiobook through Fiverr and was like, I like this idea. And then someone else mentioned a website called ACX. And that is Audiobook Creator Exchange. So basically, if you have a book on Amazon and you want someone to narrate it, you go onto ACX and you find someone who wants to narrate. And it's anything from royalty share, which is to say when a book sells, the author and the narrator both get half of the royalty.
Whatever it is that Amazon gives you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's never very much, but it does add up.
Yeah.
All the way up to paying like $400 per finished hour.
Right.
So there's a range of experiences.
For instance, I bet Patrick Stewart could get $400 an hour, or Samuel L. Jackson.
I know people on the Audiobook Creator Exchange Facebook group that routinely pull down $300 to $400 an hour.
Nice.
And I'm like, teach me your ways.
We are not worthy, but we would like to be.
Basically. So I went on to ACX and I created a profile and I started applying to various and sundry jobs. And I got some small audiobooks and stuff like that. And then an author named Bridget Essex reached out to me and said, my wife and I really love your voice. We would like for you to audition for our audiobook. And at the time it was Don't Say Goodbye that Bridget wrote.
Okay.
And so I auditioned for it and had to audition again because I talked too fast. I had to find that right level of the storytelling voice. So that took a little bit of practice. But once I got it, Bridget and I have been working together for a while now. I'm actually working on another of her books called Hot Blooded.
Would a click track help?
A click track. So what exactly is a click track?
A click track is a musician thing where when you're in a studio, to make sure that you keep to a thing, especially if you don't hear anybody else or you're laying down all the tracks yourself, you can control it and get the thing to give you a click track, which is click, 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 click it however many bits per minute you want. So if it's like bum, 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 or bum, bum, bum. It's kind of like having a drum that keeps you, but it reminds you, and you kind of fall into a rhythm if you've got something slower like that.
Mm-hmm. That would probably drive me insane, to be honest. Having that in my ears while I'm recording would just be like, I'm going to kill something.
I have found that it is very useful and you can do some very interesting things with it. And it is most useful when you are recording questions for someone else to answer, and they are answering separately in a separate session.
Mm-hmm.
Having a click track allows you to not vary your speech length and get lazy and faster or lazy and slower. So it sounds more like you're actually having a conversation.
Mm.
And it's very easy if you've worked musically or worked as a singer with an orchestra, because it's exactly the same as practicing with a metronome.
Sure. And I can see that being very useful for some people. For me, I go back and listen to myself fairly frequently, as much as I hate doing that. I go back and listen to make sure that I'm keeping to the right pace and the right voices. So for me, it's not so useful, but a click track might be really useful for someone else.
It might be especially interesting if one had something and one said, all right, I want to be sure that here is a very slow section.
Mm-hmm.
Here is where the fairy queen just lulls you to sleep. Look at your field of poppies and settle down. And then just to remind yourself of a little bit, you could actually set it up and saying, all right, here's the section through the end of this chapter. I'm going to be a little bit slower, and I need the reminder because I'm from the coast and I can start talking faster and faster and faster, and then only people from Boston understand me.
So you set up the click track to be very legato, very smooth.
And you can make it faint, so it's just like just a little whisper of twing, twing, like a grandfather clock.
Mm.
Still drive you crazy. But
Probably.
Let's not focus on any one individual too. So you've told us how you got into this, and you've told us how other people can get in this. What would you like to see? You are, to my mind, part of an emerging art form, both in that you are improvising gaming sessions, this improvised storytelling, and the way you're recording it. So this is a weird question.
All right.
What do you see for the future now that you've been involved in it? Where's this going to go?
I think right now, on the gaming side of things, there is a saturation in the market because a lot of people saw what Critical Role is doing and said, I can do that too. So right now, it's a wide open market, which is wonderful. You can get all sorts of cool stories that way. There's other podcasts that I listen to that are real play, and I have a lot of fun with them.
It is. Last Monday was International Podcasting Day.
Really?
Uh-huh. I think I put a little note out there at everybody at the time saying, hey, those of you who don't listen to podcasts, you can. And what a beautiful wealth of podcasts are out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there's so many. There's so
all the
many different
podcasts
kinds
in the world, ours is one.
Exactly.
Yes.
Writers Drinking Coffee.
Writers Drinking Coffee. Yeah, and that's it is that. So the market, how do you see on Audible, though? Because I think Audible is still growing. I think there's still more to go because there's body of work for how many years, and many people may never meet Charles Dickens except Tim Curry recorded A Christmas Carol.
Did he? I have to go listen to that.
Oh,
I love the man's voice.
Do you have an Alexa?
No, I don't.
Okay. Because if you have, anybody that has one can say, Alexa, read me A Christmas Carol.
And it's Tim Curry?
And at Christmas time, they do it, and it's Tim Curry reading to you.
Oh, I'll have to go visit a friend who has an Alexa just to get that, because that sounds amazing.
Yes. And there's a few others out there that people have done in particular, but I think it's, I now start looking not just for my favorite authors, but I look for my favorite voices too.
I actually read a couple of, I didn't do the audiobook versions of them, but I did read a couple of books specifically because Will Wheaton did the audiobooks for them. And I said to myself, if he liked them enough to work on them, I should probably read them. Ready Player
One.
And Red Shirts.
Yeah.
Red Shirts was funny, and I could see why Will Wheaton read that one.
I didn't know that he did the Audible, but now I kind of have to get it because I loved the book.
Right?
We love you, John Scalzi.
We love you, John Scalzi. Keep writing.
Yes, please.
I want somebody to actually read Your Hate Mail Will Be Graded. Maybe even John. I don't know. But
I think you needed a more nasal voice than mine for that. Certainly for the letters coming in.
Have you ever heard Gilbert Gottfried reading's 50 Shades of Grey?
Yes.
Oh my God.
That is a glorious piece of art.
It is.
As far as where the future is going, I think that things are going to become more and more decentralized. I think that because more and more people who do my line of work have like whisper rooms in their homes, or at the very least, like I used to have, a very nice walk-in closet. which was
My roommate
perfect.
practices trumpet. Dave the web spider in his walk-in, or not walk-in closet, but sit-in heavily.
Eggshell.
and honestly, I didn't even need to do the eggshelling part. I had clothes on both sides, and that cut enough of the sound that I just had to nail a sleeping bag on the back wall.
And you're not worried Narnia is going to care or try to steal your...
I mean, I figure if Aslan has a problem with it, he can come and talk to me.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I would have no problem with Aslan coming and talking to me.
Especially in Liam Neeson's voice.
Liam Neeson.
The older BBC version, though, I don't know who the voice actor was for that Aslan, but...
Yeah. Well, we are going to be putting links to the stories and all of the stuff we talked about on our website, which is www.writersdrinkingcoffee.com. You can also find us on Facebook or Twitter. We answer email. Tiana would be delighted to answer questions that you stick on our website. You've been listening to Writers Drinking Coffee, a labor of love and enthusiasm put together by the host. Our main web support magic is brought to you by Deirdre McGaffey-Schween, and our sound engineer and backup web spider is David Welsh. Our intro music is Pretty Maid Milking a Cow, and our exit music is Breakfast with the Morning Person, both by Michael Engberg. You can hear more from Michael Engberg on manyhatsmusic.com. Our podcast sponsor is Jackal Designs, enabling you all to buy cool WDC swag.